moral victories. I mean, let's keep it real here when you're talking about any level of college athletics in this day and age. This is big-time athletics. Liberty basketball, Virginia basketball. Insert your school here, whether it's a moderate amount or a large amount or none at all NIL, even before then. So when it comes to, I know, by the way, just go ahead and I'm not going to say take a detour because this is providing context, but the haters say we get into the weeds, so why not? Let's just get into the weeds right now to start the fast lane.
The haters say we get into the weeds. They may even say we get into the weed.
Smoke weed every day.
Nah, we love getting into the weeds to discuss some cool sports details here in the fast lane.
So when it comes to high school sports, I will criticize performance, but rarely is it just calling out any individual player. That's not really the type of thing that I'm doing. By the way, TJ, multitask, baby. You got to pod that music down so it's not the same loud one the entire time, and then you got to bring it back up. Yep, that's exactly correct. I'm coaching TJ hard one-on-one because the reality is that, we're working on growth areas and opportunity. TJ, enthusiastic. TJ, eager to learn. TJ, still a rookie. So I don't have any other way to do it. And yes, by the way, while we're getting into the weeds, in a perfect world, I'd pull people aside, take 30 minutes to explain what things are during regular business hours. But in regular business hours, we're trying to drum up business so that everybody has an opportunity to do what we do at the Fast Lane and at the Virginia Talk Radio Network. I know I'm on a high horse today. It is what it is. By the way, I will take a detour to explain why this is the case.
Time to take a detour in the fast lane.
Twofold. Friday, Monday, and today, kids out of school. Friday, I watch them. Yesterday, I watch them until we get a babysitter. Today, I watch them for a chunk of the day. And I'm going to sound like a real a-hole parent for a second and spouse, but my wife, and by the way, she does great work for Brownstone Properties, but I can do a lot of work from remote locations, but inevitably in sales, some of it is just getting your butt in front of people to communicate and talk. There's only so much you can communicate by email and phone. And so it's been neglecting the last handful of days. I can try a lot of that when I'm at home, but when 2 6-year-olds are pulling for your attention, some of it is as cute as can be and awesome. And you see their creativity and they're building things. But if this sounds like an a-hole parent thing, maybe it's somewhat true. I don't always have the time to stop and look at what they're building, or better yet, break up their arguments and fights because so-and-so touched me, took my stuff, or I just wanted to get a reaction out of this sibling, or this sibling wouldn't play with me. I get it. It's what happens with kids. But at some point, my clients don't care about that. Heck, you probably don't care because it's not your kids dealing with it, but I hope if you've got them, you can at least relate to this either because you're starting to go through it or maybe because you have. But my patience is fried at this point because the sales results don't really care that that's been going on. So then I have to compensate for it regularly. And our kids are at that age where they just don't understand it. And I am desperately trying to raise our kids to realize this whole everybody gets a participation trophy. Let's just hold hands and sing Kumbaya and go get an ice cream cone after the game. No. In some things in life, there's a winner and a loser. And I'm not saying other people are losers out there in media and that we're winners in the fast lane, but inevitably, when you're in marketing and advertising, we are competing with different outlets. And we have great value. We have over 90,000 people that have consumed our Virginia Talk Radio Network platforms on average, from streaming to podcasting to the videos we're putting out on social media like YouTube and Facebook Live. But there comes a point in time where you're fighting your butt off for that, and your kids just don't understand it. And I get my wife works her butt off for Brownstone Properties. She is fantastic as a property manager. I am a believer that men and women are created equal in terms of opportunities, but they're not created equal in terms of how we're wired. And that doesn't make one good and one bad. Like, I'm not of that belief that women are supposed to be barefooting in the kitchen and that men are supposed to be the only contributors to the family. I endorse my wife working. I think it's awesome. But there does come a point in time where what my kids need from me is different from what they need from mom. And it clashes at times. And ultimately, they get a little bit of both. And it's going to hopefully make them better contributing members. But man, is it wear you out this time of year. So my patience gets really thin when I go into places like earlier today to get some protein because we're out of that. And I go in and the lady wants to chat and try to upsell me. And it's like, look, I'm not trying to be rude to the poor lady behind the counter, but I only have so much time to get back to even do the fast lane. So yes, thank you for listening to my therapy session for the first 5 minutes today, but it's hopefully to provide some context of how things operate. Now, I'm also fired up because we've gotten hit up about Ryan Odom being hired as the new men's basketball coach at the University of Virginia. And I could not disagree more with this take, which to me is, okay, full disclosure here in the fast lane. It's coming from our listener, Shannon. He is what I would refer to as one of those guardians of the game when it comes to basketball. Have you ever heard of that term, TJ? Guardians of the game?
So-and-so, yeah.
So what I mean by guardians of the game is there is no... I don't think football really has guardians of the game. You can have the Liberty offense where it's a glorified triple options. They just do it out of the shotgun, so there's some window dressing, and it looks more modern. Sorry to Philip Doss, former lineman of Liberty, who's in the background if you're watching at Fastlane, Edlane, or VTR in Sports on Facebook Live or YouTube. But it's a glorified option attack, just window dressing to make it look cool and modern. Like, it's really not all that different. But in football, the objective is to win the doggone game. Even people who laugh at, Army, Navy, Air Force, ultimately, people respect that style. Now, people didn't always respect Paul Johnson, Georgia Tech, but he's kind of a curmudgeon, crusty, and they had those ridiculous Russell athletic uniforms that were the most unfashionable things on the planet, and that did not help. But since they moved beyond that, people have moved beyond that with the perception of them. But in basketball and baseball, by far, those are the two stick and ball sports in this country. Okay, soccer counts, but we're not counting them as one of the four mainstream stick and ball sports, although they are surging in popularity. I get it. But baseball and basketball have this guardians of the game complex. Baseball, why would we have analytics? Okay, yes, sometimes it's ridiculous when it's just strikeouts and home runs. And the shift is on and it's bad. Well, here's an idea. Rather than ban the shift, just have guys that bunt the ball over to the area where nobody is and continue to hit in that area and keep taking advantage of the void. Like in the NFL, if you brought up a pressure rate of 10 people all the time and went after the quarterback with every one of them, they'd use hot routes and just burn you the whole time. It's called game plan adjustment. Be a professional. This whole, we need to guard let the system guard itself. But baseball has this complex, and basketball is the other guardians of the game. Basketball is more ridiculous because in other sports, it's based upon the concept of winning. And in basketball, it's the poetry in motion. It's the beauty of how the game unfolds. It's the ebbs and the flows, and it's supposed to be free-flowing and free of constraints, and who the hell cares? If you win the game, you win the game. Like, I'd rather win the game 50-49 in basketball than lose 89-88 in a college basketball game. Win the doggone game. How often did the San Antonio Spurs get dunked on and they won 4 championships? Oh, the Mavericks are so much better to watch. All right, let's poo-poo on Trey's team to really sympathize with, but the Mavericks. This is pre-Luka Doncic trade era. But before Dirk, how often were they the team that was the anti-Spurs? Free-flowing, fun to watch. No championships until they finally got one against Trey's Miami Heat a couple of decades ago. The Phoenix Suns were in the same boat. Man, they're fun to watch. Okay, great. It doesn't matter when it wins. Basketball people, they would have rather seen the Spurs championships, I'm not joking here, literally get taken from San Antonio and given to the Mavericks. Well, there's a sector in college basketball that cannot believe that Virginia could be relevant in anything, and they are literally holding the idea of what they looked like under Tony Bennett for 15 years. Never mind that it won them multiple ACC regular season championships, multiple ACC tournament championships, a national championship that you can sit there and say they lucked their way to. But the flip side is, how often did the Virginia Cavaliers get bit by bad luck, whether it was injuries or things not going their way in clutch moments? Before then, what goes around comes around. They just happen to get all their 50-50 breaks in 1 year. Take it for what it is. But fired up today because Shannon has mentioned before, when it comes to college basketball and what's going on right now in the nature of college athletics, when it comes to what we discussed yesterday in the Fast Lane about how where we are right now, Shannon chimes in with an interesting point. As long as we keep ignoring the elephant in the room, then we can continue to believe that any collegiate program in the Commonwealth of Virginia can succeed in today's NIL climate. None of the Virginia schools, including the one that won the miracle of 2019, have the cachet, media attention, or notoriety that is found in major conferences. The ACC isn't one of those. All right, I'm going to pause on a couple of those things from Shannon. By the way, compelling topic enough that we're discussing today in the Fast Lane. One of which is, okay, the one miracle part about how Virginia won, like the foul on Ty Jerome at the end of the Auburn game in the Final Four. I saw it. It's legit. They hit the legs. There's contact there. But if you're talking about the Purdue game in the Elite Eight, in a miracle, so should we discount your Duke Blue Devils when Christian Laettner won a national title because they got a miracle at the end against Kentucky?
Absolutely not. One of the greatest shots of all time.
I mean, should we discount when Duke won the one with Shane Battier and Chris Carrawell in 2001 because Maryland multiple times that year could not hold double-digit leads against Duke late in the second half?
No, just like you shouldn't cancel out the Duke game when Butler, Gordon Hayward almost made that shot. Had it gone in, Duke doesn't have that 2010 national championship that people talk about with John Shire all the time.
Exactly. So we're going to sit there and talk about Virginia and how they lucked into it, but we're not going to point out other instances. Oh, it's because Virginia's not sexy enough for the Guardians of the game. I mean, let's keep it real here. Like, the Guardians of the game are the one that detest Virginia basketball. And I'm not one to say that they didn't grow stale. They did. They have not won an NCAA tournament game since that 2019 championship run. I get it, 2020 season, what ifs. But since then, they've had disappointing losses, including the mid-majors like Furman and Ohio, not to mention Colorado State in blowout and embarrassing fashion in the play-in first four game last year. But you're going to dismiss Virginia, you might as well put some asterisks beside the sexy Duke Blue Devils and their national championships, because as TJ, the Duke fan himself, just noted, they've got them. So let's keep it real here. If we're going to go down that road and you're a Guardian of the game, got to look at the one that the Guardians of the game love the most, Duke, and put some asterisks beside those championships. Just saying. Just got to keep it real. But going on with what Shannon chimed in, if your goal is winning a lower tier conference title or capturing an at-large bid, welcome to the club. Sure, Liberty, Virginia Tech have money, but ask yourself, what don't they have? Gonzaga is a nice story, but now they're just a small Catholic school with a good basketball program. They're not Duke. No major media coverage, nor major TV market. No recent football success to elevate exposure. No major five-star recruits. No recent top-tier NBA or NFL alumni to promote their alma mater. Okay, I'm going to brush back on that for Virginia. Who are the top two teams in the Eastern Conference in the NBA right now? Boston's one of them, deservedly. Maybe not in the standings, but whatever.
Then Cleveland.
Cleveland, who happens to have, Ty Jerome and DeAndre Hunter, who went to, wait for it, the Virginia Cavaliers, who, wait for it, you can call it a miracle run to the title, but let's not kid ourselves. Virginia had NBA talent on that particular roster. Mamadi Diakite has had a cup of tea. Kyle Guy spent some time before becoming a coach. As much luck as there was, Virginia actually had talent then they just didn't have at other points. But the point that I think Shannon is missing the most as the Guardian of the game is this. What does it really matter right now? Okay, Virginia's style may not be aesthetically appealing. Who wants to go to Charlottesville? What is the ACC compared to the SEC? Oh, look, I don't know. I mean, I get the SEC is relevant to an extent now, but what history and cachet do some of those programs in the SEC have? Oh, you want to talk about style? Auburn's not the most aesthetically appealing team. I'll give you. Florida, Kentucky, they look great. They're fun to watch. Same with Alabama as well. They play no defense. I think it's going to catch up to them at some point, but Alabama's fun to watch. But Texas A&M, I know they lost early once again, but Buzz Williams has gotten them to the NCAA tournament consistently. They're like a 50-49 team. Tennessee Volunteers, same thing. If we're going to dump on Virginia, let's go ahead and dump on the SEC programs like that. If we're going to dump on Virginia, let's dump on some teams in Big Ten football who had a lot of success, but just haven't quite gotten over the hump. Indiana this past year, Iowa before. I mean, my God, try watching one of those games. It's painful to watch. Oh, offense setback for decades. If you think Virginia's bad relative to their sport, Iowa in football, there are jokes about them getting to 30 points a game in football. So again, this is not to excuse the fact that Virginia has struggled the last 5-6 years and struggled to adapt. But when it comes to Ryan Odom being a fit at Virginia, I vehemently disagree with the idea that they can't get the resources in place and can't win. Just listen to what Ryan Odom had to say yesterday's introductory press conference. Clearly, there's a process in place. Retention, then transfers. And of course, we know how you get that.
Retention. We would not have been able to do what we did at VCU or at Utah State if we weren't able to retain our players. And then you fill in, with the transfer portal. And in some years it's going to be a big change. It just is what it is. Some years there's going to be more guys from the portal. And 1 year guys are great sometimes. And I've been so fortunate with 1 year guys. I've been so fortunate. And there are examples at each place where I have tight relationships with these kids that had tremendous success, and our staff has tight relationships with them.
And that's the thing. It's retention and then it's transfers. And that's part of it. But to get to the heart of Shannon's issue about what Virginia has, and other fans out there have an issue with as well when it comes to the University of Virginia, and that's this. It all comes back to one key principle that we will discuss when we return in an abbreviated edition of the Fast Lane on the VTRN Sports app and Ask Your Smart Speaker, open VTRN Sports.
When you're voted one of the best plumbers according to Lynchburg Living magazine, you want to hire the best. Sullivan Plumbing wants the best plumbers to join our award-winning team. Do you have a clean driving record? Do you have at least 4 years plumbing experience? Then you're a 5-star recruit, and Sullivan Plumbing would love to meet with you. Take the first step. Call Sullivan Plumbing in downtown Lynchburg or email sullivanplumbing@gmail.com.
The Black Rose, Mount Joy, Government Mule, JJ Gray and MoPro. Need us to continue? Paul Coffin, the California.
Welcome to the Villas at Oakwood. Our stunning community offers spacious, modern, wheelchair-accessible villas with top-of-the-line amenities. Enjoy views from the peaks of Otter from your patio home. Connect with neighbors at our exclusive clubhouse. Discover your dream home today. Experience the maintenance-free lifestyle that you deserve. Visit us behind the Bedford Memorial Hospital, online at thevillasatoakwood.com, or just contact Robin Lee Sage at 434-238-4477.
Guests are great, except unwanted guests. At Specialty Exterminating, we know the difference. Hi, I'm Sabrina Kennan with Specialty Exterminating. We help you keep unwanted pests out of your home. Now we can keep those reptiles away. Our new reptile repellent is the perfect add-on for your pest prevention service. It's pet and people safe, so it's perfect for any homeowner, especially pool owners and homes in wooded and rural areas. Call us so we can repel the reptiles. Specialty Exterminating, your pest prevention partner since 1979.
We are making it happen at the Used Car Superstore on the Sheeler Motor Mile, your premier used car dealer serving Southwest Virginia and surrounding areas for over 50 years with the best selection, value, finance options, and exceptional service. Plus 900 pre-owned vehicles all in one location. Volume selling means volume pricing, and we've got the volume. The Used Car Superstore is your one-stop for most makes and models. Cars, trucks, vans, SUVs. Many have miles in the teens, remaining factory warranties, and some are even local one-owner vehicles. Plus, Sheeler owns the finance company. Getting approved for credit is easy on the Motor Mile with finance options for every budget. 900 used vehicles in stock now. More than any other dealer in the area. Hurry in for straightforward pricing and more inventory arriving daily. Why wait? Make it happen at the Used Car Superstore on the Sheeler Motor Mile, your premier family-owned car dealer serving Southwest Virginia and surrounding areas for 50 years. I-81 exit 118C in Christiansburg. Call 866-SHEELER1. Always open at Sheeler.com.
Hey, gang, this is Bud Foster, former defensive coordinator for the Virginia Tech Hokies. You're listening to The Fast Lane with Ed Lane and Trey Lyle. Join the chat at Trey Lyle BT and Fast Lane Ed Lane on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, and Instagram.
Well, first of all, we actually do appreciate people who chime in at Fast Lane Ed Lane, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, or however you choose to connect with us. And Shannon is one of those and has sparked something that we've used as a basis of discussion today in the Fast Lane. And he mentions this about concerns about Ryan Odom actually being the viable fit at the University of Virginia. And he adds, and please keep your thoughts coming, Simply put, identity is lacking. What's going to change that? Do fans even remember teams like George Mason in 2006, Liberty's Sweet 16 appearance, Richmond's recent one in 2011, where they upset the number 2 seed? That's a rhetorical question. You already know the answer. Name any ACC program that have better opportunities than Tech and UVA for long-term success in both football and basketball collectively. Are they even in the top 6 of that conference? I would absolutely say they are. They've got the commitment. They've got the resources. You're talking about a Virginia school that has a $6 billion endowment or thereabouts. They're one of the tops in the country. They have the resources. And I get it. A lot of that money is earmarked specifically not for sports. But the point I'll make that I made before with other Virginia fans is this. It means you've got the people on whom you can call to continue to bring in more
dollar bills, y'all.
And it backs up what Ryan Odom mentioned at the press conference, and that ultimately resonates with kids. And that's this point about needing and having the money.
In this day and age, NIL matters. The ref share obviously is happening and a real thing. Virginia, in talking with Carla and talking with President Ryan, the goals are very simple. We want to be top 10 in the country. In order to do that, you have to have the resources. And certainly, that's where we're at right now.
That's where we're at right now. We are. It's where it matters. And Shannon added, in the last point he mentioned is this. No dude wants to play at UVA unless you seriously overpay him, which they fundamentally won't do. The points you make sense, but I just think there's more nuance than, in the immortal words of our guy, Kenny Powers, that we so love to quote.
Dollar bills, y'all.
No, that's where I disagree. With all due respect to Shannon, I think he's wrong. Philip's been around college sports for a while. He might be able to tell me whether I'm right or wrong on this. He can easily just come in and give a thumbs up or a thumbs down. But the point that most people make, if you're a desired talent, is this. When you're talking about desired talent, and I've had former coaches say this, former players say this, and former media people say this. No, there's not the nuance that Shannon's talking about. This is where, with all due respect, as a listener, he just doesn't have the knowledge and access and the expertise that people like us here that have been around the game on a more intimate level have. And that is, it is about money. The first conversation, go back to our interview last March 2024 with Junior Burrow, about how you solve these problems with Virginia basketball. It's getting more talent. How do you get more talent? The first question out of everybody's mouth is, how much you pay me? How much you pay me? And if you do, you'll solve the problem. Like, this isn't what it was back in the day. Virginia's style or lack thereof, or street cred or lack thereof, or guardian of the game approvedness or lack thereof. Who cares? Texas A&M never had that in basketball or football for that matter. I was sorry to their fans, but they don't. Vanderbilt, they're now in the NCAA tournament. They've come on the rise in football too. Indiana football, none of them have that. They've all been boring to watch. Heck, Iowa football. And yet, what do they have? They have money. And listen to this. Again, we said it yesterday, but clearly we need to repeat it. But Matt Norlander of CBS Sports and the Eye on College Basketball podcast had this to say about Virginia and what they're about to do.
This information is sourced going back months, but Virginia, between NIL fundraising and expected revenue sharing, it is anticipating to have a massive, massive leap in its financial war chest, north of $7 million all told. And that is a very drastically different situation than what Tony Bennett had when he opted to retire. So the ACC is also down. As we speak, we are going to have a second round of the NCAA tournament, and the ACC will have one team left. That is, of course, Duke. And that has not been the case since the tournament expanded to 32 teams in 1975. So the entry point is as low as it could possibly be in the ACC. And if Odom is as good as Virginia thinks he is, then he's going to have that program back in the NCAA tournament no later than 2027.
I agree. And I think they have a chance to contend. The style actually makes it more appealing. Ryan Odom is not Tony Bennett in terms of first to 50 winning a basketball game. If you look at his history, it's much more varied. And this is why I'm bullish on the hire of Ryan Odom for Virginia, because he's constructed his teams and rosters based upon his personnel, which means adaptation. Tony Bennett was more, I think you could argue Tony Bennett's had more success and he's a better coach, but Richie McKay has done a better job adapting the personnel relative to the competition. This past year, they actually played a lot faster for the majority of games because the personnel dictated that. Last year was more slow because they just didn't have the athleticism. They varied it up. Tony Bennett was more, hey, it's kind of old triple option philosophy. This is our system. It is what it is. Ryan Odom's not that way. And if you add money to that, does it mean they'll be at the top? No. Does it mean the SEC's here to stay? Yeah, it does. but it means Virginia has a chance, despite what the Guardians of the game may not want to think, because the Guardians of the game can get overcome by the amount of money you have, as we've seen consistently again and again and again. By the way, thank you for the feedback, Shannon. We love it. We appreciate it. We'll get to more of this tomorrow in the Fast Lane. We do need to put a bow on Liberty basketball, men's and women's seasons, and didn't have a chance today because thank you for listening to my little therapy session to start the Fast Lane. Appreciated. You can agree or disagree with that at Fast Lane, Ed Lane, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. And Shannon's got some more points to discuss tomorrow in the Fast Lane as well about the overall state of the ACC. But I will leave with this. Some of where the ACC is right now, and it's Duke and everyone else, and Louisville looks okay, but Carolina's got their issues, is it's been a collective brain drain. And Andrew Jones brought this up a couple of weeks ago about the disenfranchisement with Jim Phillips, the ACC commissioner, but I think it's reasonable because there was a lack of pressure on these athletic programs to get their act together. And they may not have the funds of the Big Ten or the SEC, but they at least shouldn't be getting lapped by the Big 12 as well. All of that's still to come tomorrow. This, when we return tomorrow, now on to Virginia Tech baseball.